Hello, everybody, and welcome to our broadcast. And today I have a very special guest with me, Kristina Ann from The Impactful Parent. And we're going to be having a very good conversation on parenting. We'll be right back. Okay, and so I have Kristina Ann with me. She is the founder of The Impactful Parent. Hey, Kristina, how are you?
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Oh, no, I'm super excited. So, since I already told everybody a little bit about yourself, why don't you just tell everybody where you're from, a little bit about your family, and what you do?
Yeah, so I am in the Denver area, but I service families all over the United States and the world, I guess, because most of what I do is online, and most of actually what I do is actually for free. I try to give parenting tips and resources to the parents of school age children because that's where I feel like we need a lot of help. I feel like there's a lot of resources for babies and like toddlers, but not enough resources for people who have teenagers or tweens that are going through a lot of changes. So that's what I try to do is I try to help those parents.
That's so awesome. And I'm so glad you're doing it because I don't know if that many people are aware of some of the statistics in the United States. For example, right now, 1 out of 5 teenagers or young adults commit suicide in the United States from the ages of 12 to 25 years old. That's about 3 to 6, depending on the day, youths a day. So your work is definitely needed. And I've also heard a lot of parents talking about their concerns, and it's a lot with this difficult age, right, of the tweens and the teens. So I wanted to start a talk with a quote that you have that I really like. It says, "You may have given a life, but it's not your life to live." So let's start talking about that because I find it very interesting and I think it's very helpful. And I want to hear like your point of view, like your definition of what that means to you.
Yeah, so I coined that. I don't know if it's official or not, but it's something I say often to my parents that come to me for help because so much of parenting are when we have conflict with our kids comes from expectations that we had in our brain that just didn't get met, or these things that we had in our mind. And everybody has expectations from with their kids. Everybody. From the minute that you become pregnant, you got a vision in your mind of how this is all going to play out and how your kid's going to be this and do that and it's all going to be better, and we hope so much, like we want our kids to do so much more than we ever did. So we got all these aspirations for them. And then when our kids don't live up to those expectations or those things that we really wanted for them, we become disappointed. And I feel like a lot of our parenting troubles, not all of it, but a lot comes rooted in those failed expectations that our kids didn't do exactly what we wanted them to do. And the reality is that although we have given this life, it's not our life to live. The purpose of parenting is not to have a straight A student. It's not to have this kid that's going to go to college someday. The purpose of parenting is to grow an adult who's going to be self-sufficient, who like serves their community, like contributes to the world, and just, that the qualities of life of being a good person. But so many times we wrap it around achievements, and that's not what we need to do. And so that's kind of where the conflict comes into play. And it's just so tough when you got a kid that, just it wasn't panning out the way you thought it was going to. And it just so happens so often.
Yeah, I think it happens a lot because sometimes, we had our own expectations for ourselves. And so then we think, okay, well, now maybe they can do this that maybe I didn't get to do. And because maybe we're giving them more opportunities, we kind of expect. So we're giving, but we have like we're talking about right now, the expectations. And I think that's where it becomes really important for like the parent to think of themselves also as this is an opportunity where your child is like showing you, okay, this is what I need to work on, because then I'll be able to be a better parent. So, I didn't get to do this, maybe my child has that opportunity, but maybe he doesn't want to do it. So I'm going to have to find a way for me to deal with that,
Yes.
So it becomes to the personal development. Like, do you see a lot of that in your practice? Do you implement?
I do. And
Yeah.
all of that conflict comes from love. All of that is like, I don't know, it's masked, or maybe the excuse that parents use is, well, it's just because I love them so much, which is true. You love them so much. You want them to value education. You love them so much. You want them to go to college. You love them so much. You don't want them to get into drugs. It's like you love them so much. You want to improve how you were. That, I want so much more for you than I had. And yet, that's not really our choice. Again, it's not about us. It's about raising this kid that can, contribute to the world and has values, but it's not about achievements. And so it's masked in this blanket of, it's just because I love you. Well, it's true. I'm glad that you love your kid, but we got to kind of step back a little bit and not allow love to be an excuse for some of the things that we're doing to our kids.
Yes. But I think that also it has a lot to do with society and with media and advertisement and the way that we're kind of being geared towards. We're
Absolutely.
meant to look at things as achievements. Like if it has to do with career, it has to do with money or bling. It doesn't have to do with mission or purpose or drive or, personal achievement. It's always towards the material. So I feel that as parents also, we feel that way because that is what we're taught to value as a society. But then also, what do you think about the role of maybe validation or acceptance? Because, maybe in our country club or in our church or our school, Maria's kid is, in the honor roll and is going to go to college, but my kid wants to be a tattoo artist. How do you feel about that? What do you think? Do you think that plays a big role? And how can we deal with that aspect as parents?
That the media and society absolutely has a huge role in it. And it muddles and makes it really difficult for us as parents to really focus on what's truly important, because there is so much pressure as a parent that if your kid doesn't turn out like X, Y, and Z, then maybe you're not the good parent, which is crap. That's not true at all. So we definitely get influenced by media and environment and even just the neighbors. One of the reasons why I created The Impactful Parent was to help parents alleviate that, because there's so many parents out there that want help, don't know where to go, and are afraid and scared to be seen or shamed by Karen across the street, or they don't want somebody who knows their kids or somebody close to home to know their dirty laundry, that what's really happening in the home. And that's why my business is online, so that people can have a space where they could be anonymous or ask questions and be able to get some answers back. And I don't have to know their family. Because it is embarrassing, and that's on us as in our own personal development. We have to kind of get over that, but it's such a hard thing to get over because we're conditioned, like you said, to feel this way. And imagine the compound that our kids feel too. They have pressures. Oh, the pressures right now are just enormous. You have to do this. You have to be this. You have to go there. Make sure that you attend this school because that one's the best. Like, what if you don't want to do that? There are so many successful kids out there that don't have to fit inside the box. And we got to start expanding our mindset to include them in being successful.
Yeah, and it's gotta be hard for kids. I mean, think about it. We had it hard and we were just dealing with school, or we were just dealing with one classroom, right? Now it's like you're having like all your dirty laundry spread out. Like if you break out with someone, you're rejected by someone. It's not just 10 or 15 people finding out anymore. It's the World Wide Web. Like the pressure that kids have nowadays to perform or are much greater than we can even possibly imagine. So just imagine kids have everything that we had times 100. So I think it's really important to be able to, like you said, put yourself in your kids' shoes. Sometimes we we were mentioning before, we're a little bit too worried about ourselves. We're still a little bit caught up in our feelings, like we were saying, a little bit of validation. How are we going to look in a certain community? Or maybe we're still caught up in our emotions, like how we feel or how this makes us reflect. Are people going to think I'm a bad parent because of this choice? And so we have to find a way to deal with that. I want to take a second to say hello and thank everyone that is watching. And we have actually a question from Mark Sandy. Hey, Mark. It says, how can I go from best friend to school principal as he does online schooling? That's a really good question. Do you want to jump in on this one?
Sure. Well, I would suggest you're not trying to be anybody's friend when you're a parent. Instead, you're trying to be their parent. I think that's really, really important distinction. And being their parent doesn't mean that you can't be friendly. It just means that you're not being their friend. And so how we create that is through boundaries. Really creating boundaries for your kids and saying, look, and really with them. Because if you create rules and just throw out the rules and say, these are the rules, and you just state them, you're going to get pushback, right? Nobody wants to be told what they can and can't do. I mean, kids are the same. Don't forget, they're people too. They don't want to be pushed around. But you can set boundaries for them and say, look, here's our boundaries. This is what I need from you. This is what I'm expecting from you. And you communicate it and you can explain why you have the boundary. I need this boundary here because if I don't, I'm afraid that you're not going to wake up on time or whatever to get to school. I'm afraid you're not going to get your homework done. If you can prove to me that you can live inside this boundary, then maybe I can push the boundary. I could take it away at some point and feel comfortable with that you're going to do it on your own. But you really got to really communicate that. And I think that's where a lot of parents make that mistake is we don't tell our kids why. We just say,
yes.
Hey, you can't. I'm sorry. No. And then it's ended discussion. And they're left with what? Well, I mean, and again, they're people too. So it's about a relationship with your child. And it's not necessarily hierarchy. It's a relationship. You're giving, you're taking, you're coming back, you're discussing, you're compromising. And all of that takes effort, takes time. And I think sometimes as parents, we just want to be like, no, I don't have the energy for this. And I get it. It's exhausting.
That's it. Yeah, it is. It is. But what you said is so true. Taking their feelings into account is probably one of the most important things we could do for any human being that we have a relationship with. If you just say just because, well, you're not adding them into the equation, although they are a part of the equation. I mean, this is the relationship. This is the dynamic. So although we want our child to see us as a friend and be able to talk to us and come to us and know that they can't tell us anything, you do have to be the parent when it comes to making the decision. So you can acknowledge their feelings, like Kristina Ann said, but you still have to set the boundaries. And remember that kids, yeah, they think that the best thing for them is because they're growing up and they're gaining experiences and now they have their own opinion and they're developing their own beliefs, that they know everything. But it's like a mountaintop, okay? It's like living on a building. You know, you're not better, but if you're on the top of the building, you have a better view. It's just the way it is. Your child might be smarter than you, but you have a better view. So you have to show them that, look, this is from my experience. This is what I'm going to share with you. This is what's going to be the outcome. So this is what I need from you, and including them in that communication, in the conversation as a part of it. Like, this is something we have to work on together.
And I'm going to add to that when you're making this conversation, talk about the consequences also with your child for not living up to these boundaries or rules that you're setting for them. So that's where you become that with this question, with the school principal, you have to create a consequence for the boundary not happening too, right? And that's also a conversation. Say, this is my expectation. If you don't live up to it, this is the consequence to that expectation. Do you understand it? And sometimes it's even good, depending on what the boundary is, you can let your child decide what the consequence could be and give them a stake in it. When someone has say in what's going on in their own life, and they also have a stake in what they know the consequence is going to be, they're much more likely to follow it. And if they don't follow it, they're also much more likely to just take the consequence because they know that that was part of the conversation. It's now not, what? You're taking away my phone? What? I didn't know you were going to do that. No. You knew because you had that conversation. They knew the consequence. And at that point, now it's a choice. Am I going to wake up for school on time and get my homework done? Or am I going to get my iPod taken away? Now it becomes a choice. But if they didn't know the consequence, now see how the choice changed? Now it's, do I want to get my homework done and wake up on time? Or do I want to play video games? See, they didn't know the consequence. So it's really important to understand and communicate the consequence with your child so that they know that the choice they have is, hey, do this or this will happen. Otherwise, they're going to predict what that or is going to be.
Yes.
And that's where a conflict is, where parents just assume that, well, you should have known I was going to do that. No, you shouldn't have known. You have to communicate it.
Yeah. And when you're saying that, I don't know if this makes a difference, but I know that this happened in my home. And I think that it's really important to mention. What do you think about the consistency? Because sometimes we'll say something today because like we're upset, we're in a bad mood. And it's like, don't do this or this and that. And we try to kind of change the rules, or we're in a great mood. So you know what? I'm not going to even bother with this today. What do you think about that? Do you think that makes a difference with the child, with the way they perceive and the way they act?
Well, consistency is always really, really good, right? Consistency also provides security with your child. When they know you're consistent with how you're going to act, react, and give a consequence, then they are much more comfortable in your relationship because they know where they stand. When you're inconsistent is when they start getting nervous, and then now they don't know how if they want to tell you or not. Now they just don't know. So you want to be consistent. Having said that, we're human. And it's really important that we show our kids that we're human. If we have a bad day and we're not consistent that day, you just got to take that time to say, look, I'm sorry. I was having a bad day. I guess that wasn't very good of me. And tell them and admit your apology, your wrongdoing, possibly how that could have affected them. And when you are vulnerable like that, it shows so much great role modeling for your child to be able to be vulnerable too, that they can make mistakes and still own up to them also. So yes, be consistent, but let's be real. We're people and we're never going to do everything perfect. So let's just admit when we're wrong.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. And being vulnerable is very important because that'll make your child be more open. If he understands that you are going through some things, but you feel comfortable, saying it, I think he will be more. I know that I would be, and I always reacted to that way better. Being more participate, taking a better role, or taking responsibility for my actions because I understood how my parents felt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And now talking with that, because I know that a lot of parents are having a difficult time in getting through with their kids. And it's not just something like this, but also like having to tell your child like 1,000 times to do something. What do you think is going on here? And what do you think is the most effective way to get your child to react, or to get him to do what you want him to do or what he needs to do?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind when you say this is that if your child's not doing what you need them to do, I would first question on how are you communicating your needs? So sometimes we think we're being clear and we're really, really not. And so that would be really, really important. I think I have a free PDF actually that I can give your audience today.
Awesome.
It's 12 tips for communicating requests better for your child. And you can find it at theimpactfulparent.com/communication tips. And basically, you want to be consistent. You don't want to bluff. So many times we'll say, we'll bluff to our kids, especially when they're little. Like, if you do that, then we're not going to go. And then you end up going anyway. That's teaching the kids really early on that you're a bluffer. So we can't do that. If you want your child to listen, are you communicating your your request by saying, hey, we're leaving, put on your shoes, and you're yelling upstairs? Or are you in the room with them? And if you want your child to listen better, sometimes touching their arm helps, getting their attention by physically touching them. Again, going back to explain why you have these requests. Kids, like anybody else, don't want to be bossed around. So if you're just making these requests, do this, do that, do this, do that, and you're not giving the explanation of why you need those things to happen, it just sounds like wah, 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 wah in their ear, as it would for you too. Think of a boss that you might have at work that says, do this, do this, do this, do this. And you're just kind of like, ugh, okay. It's the same thing. You're the boss of the children. And if you don't explain where your motives are coming from, it doesn't feel good to the person who on the receiving end. And if it doesn't feel good, you're going to question whether or not you want to actually follow through with some of those requests, right? So question that about yourself, and not necessarily blame the kid right away. Think about it. How are you communicating? Are you, communicating well? Is your communication clear? And then once you can get that all out of the way, then you can talk to your child and say, okay, I've asked you like 4 times to clean your room and you haven't. Can you tell me why you are so opposed to cleaning your room? And start having the conversation with them, because they might be like, I just don't want to. Maybe they just like, it feels daunting to some kids because it's so messy. Like they don't even know where to begin. They get flustered inside, Oh, okay. I see. Now, then you might think it's ridiculous that they have an answer like that, but you could say, okay, you know what? I'll help you for 10 minutes. Let's just get started. And then you can go from there. Because they just may not know how to start. You got to find those motives.
Exactly. What's in it for them and how to help them get through the experience. It's so true. Everything is how you say it. And like you said, try to think of an incentive also, like what is in it for them? Well, if your room is clean, you're going to have more clarity. Sometimes you can't do your homework. Sometimes you can't think straight when you have a disorganized room. You might not logically think that way. You might think it's okay and it's not affecting you. But neurologically, brain science already says it does. So it's going to help you feel better. It's going to help you sleep better. Or, right? Like, what if your friends are coming over? What if you're going to have a girlfriend over? You want to make sure your room is clean and presentable because that's going to make you look better. Like, what's in it for them? Even if you have to like be creative and think of it a little bit. But if you want to get the response that you want, you got to think about, okay, well, what do I want here?
That's right.
I want my child to do it and I want him to be happy and I want me to be happy. It's not just I want him to do it and that's it. I just want to get it over with and get over with the day, because then you're going to get a totally different response. So you got to think of what you want the outcome to be.
And along with that, one of the mistakes that a lot of parents make when they're asking their kids to do something and then they're not doing it and they get really frustrated is, are you asking your child to do it right here, right now on your timetable? Because again, they're human. You don't like it when your boss says, do this right now, and you have to drop everything that you were doing that you knew that was important to you to do whatever the boss says, right? That doesn't feel good. So what I do, especially for my teenagers that are a lot more independent, right, people, I say, okay, I need you to clean your room. And I need you to clean your room and I give them maybe the day or a couple days. And I give them a time frame and say, this is when I need your room cleaned by. And if you don't clean your room by this time, I'm going to inspect it by this date, then this is the consequence for not listening to me. If for some reason you can't clean your room within that timetable, you better have a really good excuse and you need to come and talk to me about that. And you have that conversation. But to say, do it right now, that's not going to feel good and you're going to get pushback. So give them that window of time.
Yeah, you're not seeing them. We wouldn't, if you think about it, we wouldn't treat our friends like this. We wouldn't say, or anyone, anyone that we're doing any dealings with, I need that like now. But somehow we feel a little entitled. I don't know if it's because I gave birth to you, that's always in the background. So now I could just be like demanding. But think about it.
It's the way you were raised.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we do what we know. Our parents did that to us. My parents did that to me. You know, right? That's how they used to parent.
Yeah.
And so we just have to break those cycles. That's all we're doing.
Yes, it's a little bit of developing that consciousness, that awareness. First, it starts with you, the self-awareness with you, and then it starts with your children. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was how to talk to your children so they listen. But I don't know if there's anything more that you want to add, although I feel like from what I keep on hearing is, listening to the person, treating them as their own person and trying to step out of it, not thinking of myself. And I don't know if you've ever heard about the 4 quadrants when it comes to conversation. So I have it written down because I use this personally in my personal relationships. So there's several quadrants, right? And the first one is red, and it comes from thinking of how you feel. So it's always from self. How do I feel? And then this is how you're giving away your communication. Then the second part is basically coming more out of insecurity. So the orange is more out of insecurity. So what are others gonna think about me if this happens, if I say this, or if I do this, Then the purple quadrant is coming out of a little bit more of criticism. So it's a little more judgmental than accepting. And then the last one is more from influence, just thinking of the other person, not, about me or anybody else, but how is that person going to feel? How are they going to react if I say what I say? And what is the reaction that I want? So I think that it's really cool if every time you have a question, you say, okay, well, what quadrant does this fall in? Right?
I love that.
Where is this feeling coming from? Is it coming from that I'm afraid what other people are going to think? Is it coming from because I just feel critical today? Is it coming from the fact that I'm feeling wounded and this is something that I haven't dealt with, and so now my child is bringing that up? Or is it coming for their well-being? Like, am I really thinking just of them in this one? There's nothing else about it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start putting stuff in that perspective, then I guess it's going to help you get a better reaction, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that because you're really stopping what you're doing and thinking, where is this coming from? Why do I feel this way? And that's such a beautiful, well said thing because that's where it all starts. We can't control our kids. No matter how much we try, we can't. They're going to do what they're going to do. Because it's not your life, right? It's their life. So they're going to do whatever they're going to do. We're more as a guide, we're a coach in a lot of ways. And the only person we can really control is ourselves. So we can figure out why we're feeling this way. Then we can role model that. And your kids are watching. They are watching you. Even the ones that pretend that they're not and they're like this, they're watching you. So if you can role model that good self-awareness, that good self-development, that, hey, I'm trying my best. I'm a human. I admit my mistakes. I'm doing what I can. I love you to death. You communicate that, and that's your job as a parent. And then you've done great.
Yeah. And it's so true. Sometimes we want to say something, but we all know this from experience. We learn more by example. We absorb more by what we see. And our children are watching. And I remember when I was young, there was a lot of stuff being said around me that I was like, what? And they're like, oh, she's not paying attention. Yeah, I was. And kids really, really pay attention. So that is really important. And we're going to add links on the bottom. I have it here across the screen. It's www.theimpactfulparent.com/communication tips. But we will be adding links to the bottom of that. And I will be adding a diagram also and a little explanation of the 4 quadrants. So if you want to use that as a little summary, so whenever you have something that you want to confront with your family or a significant other, see where the question lies and what it is that you want, what is the outcome that you want, and see if that helps you in your communications to come. So a lot of communication tips today. Thank you so much for coming on, Kristina. I really appreciate everything everything that you said. It was so amazing. Thank you for giving us your time today.
Thank you.
All right. Well, guys, I'm going to let you go with this. And we hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day and a fantastic weekend. We will see you next week.